Okay, so it's been a while, and we still don't have any answer in terms of the election, but that's coming. So we can table that for now. Welcome to Mama Drama Trauma podcast. I'm Tammy Taylor, and it's been a minute. So I hope everybody's been doing well. I wanted to come on and share with you something that I think is really important: pay dirt. I've hit pay dirt with MDT, the foundation, the root cause, the reason, the source of it. And I thought that might be of interest to you. So I wanted to let you know that for all of the pain, for all of the frustration, for all of the anger, and for the beauty of the healing journey, because eventually you get to a point where you accept it. And personally, you're grateful for it. For me, I'm at that stage where I know there is a limit in that area of my life, and I accept the limitations of the relationship with I have with my mother. It is what it is in all of its various and sundry ways, because as we know, it affects all areas of your life. For example, this is such a revelation that I would love to share with a healed mother and say, this has been really difficult for us, not subtracting or eliminating the experience of MDT, but just in my mind, um, ideally having a mutual desire to heal, let's just say in that ideal, and we're still having a relationship in my fantasy world, and we're working through it. That's not the case, but that would be a fantasy, right? And let's say that, I could say, well, you know what, Mama, wow, I now discovered the source of all of this. And I would love to share that with you. And we could talk about it and we could say, oh, wow, we had no idea. And share that as another level of growth and development. But at this stage, I realize the limitation I have in that relationship doesn't allow for that. I accept that. And I feel blessed that I can come on here and I can share that with you, someone else that may appreciate it. So, the source of Mama Drama Trauma. Now, here at the Academy, we defined it as a condition in which the mother projects unhealed aspects of herself onto the child, causing emotional and or mental, spiritual trauma, especially for empaths. We focus on empaths. And the pay dirt has a lot to do with our particular definition of the mother wound, this trauma, because we are highly sensitive people. So it doesn't just wound us in the sense of, oh, wow, my mother doesn't love me, or my mother doesn't have unconditional love for me. Oh, this is very wounding. It's doubly wounded because we take on her pain and her trauma as well as empaths. And so this pain that we take on goes back generations. It's not just with our birth mother. Since I last posted, I've been to a couple of places, and one of them has been the foothills of the Himalayas in India, where the goddess temples are replete throughout the region, and it was just a beautiful embrace of great mother energy and very strong ancestral energy, which I've discovered through my own ancestors and being introduced to Mama Zogbe's work, which you can find on Great Mother Speaks YouTube channel, my other channel that I do in addition to Mama Drama Trauma. That's been a mess, that YouTube channel, Mama Drama Trauma. I just been whatever. But on Great Mother Speaks, I have posted my audio reading of Mama Zogbe's books that I've read since the last posting too. And I've been led through my ancestors to read and to learn about the origin of this and the Sibyls, who are the African mothers, the original African mothers that determined who the pharaohs would be. And before that, who would rule the land, the ancient lands of Africa, where the ancient pyramids are throughout southeastern and South Africa, these mothers. And this is the source of Mama Drama Trauma. You know, this goes back tens of thousands of years. This is a ancient, ancient wound. And this wounding has to do with the extirpation, the usurpation rather, the exportation the, of these mothers from Africa. They were enslaved and they were abused. Everything begins in Africa, including patriarchy. And like I said, I read the books. And so if you want more details, you can read about it there because I don't want to do it all over again here. But basically, um, there came an age, and I should say, these are not necessarily eons, but they're millennia, that through these centuries, the power was taken from the women. It didn't happen overnight. And those of us who survived this brutal usurpation of our power and authority, spiritual authority, political authority, power, the original power behind the throne. The whole thing about Isis and her son and the king and all of this is, oh my gosh, it's been replicated throughout the world, this drama since the very beginning. And I want to let you know that we were the first mothers to have our power taken away. We are the only mothers on the planet as African mothers who were never ruled by patriarchy. We've always been the mothers that ruled, and that's why people can't stand us, because we carry that in our blood. And we have always been resented, even by our own. And we see that today in all of this gender conflict. This is a cycle, and it cycles around, and we're always challenged about it because, from what I can determine, we have been on the run for millennia from this abuse, and we haven't had a chance to really catch our breaths. I mean, once we were kicked out of Africa into this is pre-Greco-Rome, Mesopotamia and Ionia and all through what we call present day Turkey. This was Asia Minor days, and Southern Europe, Iberian days before it was even called Europe, because Europa is an African goddess that the place is named. Everything is African. That the oracle, Delphi oracles, everything was established by these Africans and these Amazons that built it because they were kicked out of Africa. And as the African patriarchy, the pharaohs grew stronger, including Carthage and Hannibal, who came up and fought the then Greeks and lost because the African Sibyls assisted them in beating Hannibal because these were the same people that kicked them out of Africa. There were some of the mothers who remained in Africa and headed some of the temples, and some of them became secondary to the male appointed patriarchy in what the Greeks called the Egyptian temples. Egypt is not African. Africa is not a African word. It was Alu Bukan was what it was called before. But the Greek word for Africa is the temple of the soul of Ptah, the father of the African pantheon, developed, um, I should say, edited and modified by the post Mami Wata pharaohs. Long story short, the seed of rage has created a cyclical and generational cycle of raising female warriors. And the further we got away from the continent, the more we forgot about the fight and what we were fighting for and where we had come from. Because, like I said, just been on, even though we were in Europe for centuries, thousands of years. I mean, this is like 6,000 years before there was even a Rome, before there was even a Greece. We were there with the temples, all of that stuff that they've built now. Um, is built on top. They always talk about, well, we don't know what these old rocks are that were here before. Those were the temples that the Sibyls built. The Bible or Sibylline oracles. I mean, just everything. It's just too much to like really share right now. But I just wanted to come on here and say that Mama Drama Trauma, this projected of unhealed wounds, is based in this original wound that has never been healed, this rejection by everyone. And it really hasn't been looked at because we haven't been focusing on um, Alkebulan, what was known as Africa, and the enslavement. We were enslaved. Those of us who survived, we fled um, out of the continent northward. Many of us who survived went westward and founded the West African kingdoms that were matriarchal until um, Egypt fell. And here they come behind us, the patriarchy, and it's all over again. And then the same thing with the Egyptians as they um ascended to patriarchy, fighting the Greeks and the Romans who did come, and they taught them, patriarchy, and then they kicked us out, stole the oracles, called it the Bible, established these three religions based on our oracles, our spirituality. And during this, we're mixing with all different types of people and teaching all different types of people all this stuff that I've seen in my travels and I've seen in India, these gods and goddesses that are Black. That was us. We are not mythological gods. That they were real people. Um, Everything, even that bank over there, Petra. That was all ours. From we ruled the trade routes. And so these cycles that are coming up now about the trade routes over there and all this about African Americans and Africans, all of this is this drama playing out again. This drama and this trauma. MDT, this mama drama trauma, has been played out many cycles before. And the thing is, there's this spiritual group of souls called the Tchamba that are the enslaved Africans that have been unacknowledged, unrecognized, who watch over us. But because when we came here, our religion and our way of life, our language, we're the foundation of all the Latin languages and everything. But that was all stripped from us, and we couldn't practice any of it because they knew how powerful we were. And so we were demonized, and everything we believed became a taboo. And so that disconnected us from our power, which was our ancestors, which is what all the oracles and everything are blessed on. That's who we got our messages from. And so that's what the pantheon is based on the family of Greek ancestors, which are totally plagiarized from the African pantheon, which they learned from us. Like everything else, the point is the accumulation of this rejection um, and the projection of wounding from others onto us, and us essentially being the salt of the earth, has produced this cycle. It's this inward toxicity that we are now having to deal with. And so the only way that we're going to heal it is by reclaiming and reconnecting with the Chamba, with the souls that have come before us and have lived this cycle. These souls watch over us and they protect us, but we don't communicate with them. We don't talk to them. I'm not advocating that you do, that you have to. I'm just saying that this is what I've discovered, and it has been powerfully demonstrated to me that this is in fact the case. This is what um, spiritual systems that I've learned and studied and practiced are based on, this kind of empowered understanding that frees you. You know, there's religious beliefs that require that you compartmentalize your emotions over here and your spiritual life is over there, and never the two really meet. And then there are spiritual practices that integrate all of who you are and your whole experience. That's what I'm talking about. And since MDT is such a central part of the experience of those of us who have MDT, and if you come from the Chamba ancestry, and I said, we have mixed historically. The Tudors of Europe were all Moors, which means black. Moreno in Spanish ruled Spain for 700 years from the 7th to the 15th century. I mean, you know, if you know, you know. If you're down with it, you down with it. You know, the Irish, Ices, you know, the descendants of Isis in Egypt, Scotia, um, named after the African princess up there, you know, all of it, you know. So it's not about complexion. Um, it's about bloodline, which is why the coat of arms in Europe up until about the 17th, 18th century prominently showed African images in their coat of arms for the royal families along their castle walls to prove that they had the blood, that the Mami Watas and the Sibyls would determine whether or not you had this blood that you could rule. Why the royalty and the high military generals and everybody, the Caesars and everybody went to the oracles, because we determined that. And so throughout the ages, we just been hated on for that. And so as we've had daughters, it has affected us. And yes, we are strong, and yes, we are connected to spirit and all of that. And we transcend a lot, and we got the, black girl magic going on and everything. We are deeply wounded from this source experience of neglect, rejection, and abuse. And in order to stop projecting it onto our divine feminine progeny, we need to recognize it, reclaim this power, and reconnect with this ancestral biography, not just in the physical world as a story, but as something that is in the spiritual realm, constructing our life experience, you know, and making us feel blocked, like we can't get out of it. And as soon as I made the connection, I was finally free. I was just finally free. And I realized, wow, this is way bigger than me and my triggered emotions that have just been cycling around this wound for an incalculable number of lifetimes, you know? So I just wanted to get that out. Um, Share any thoughts you might have about it, what you've been learning. There's a lot going on right now with identity politics, and I've listened to a lot of it myself, and definitely see how this fits into all of it as the source wound and as the source people who, by the way, came to the Americas before Columbus. The Moors, in fact, were the navigators for the Spanish because we went on the current from West Africa. That's like a 2-week ride in pre BC times. We've been coming over here for thousands of years. And then the Moors, it was just a regular trip for the gold. And, you know, um, when we were enslaved, it wasn't in the Bible, by the way, uh, that the original Christians were crucified. Those were the Sibyls. The Sibyls were crucified as pagans. You know, um, the Christians were pagans of what? If you think about it, that doesn't make any sense. How were they pagans, if they were Christians? The pagans were the Sibyls. We were the pagans. And so once again, we fled. And those of us who could get away, we were the foundational people in other parts of Europe and further south. But many of us were sold into slavery at that time too, sent to Spain and into the Americas before Columbus. So there's a lot going on right now and a lot that's being revealed. And this source wound is foundational to a lot of it and to how we can and will move forward as a people. if in fact we do grasp what it is we need to do to heal, which is to acknowledge, reclaim, and reconnect with who we really are. Own it, live it, and heal from the consequences of being it with the advantage of all that we've learned. And we've learned a whole lot. Share with me some of the things that you've learned, and maybe we can get this going again. If not, hope you like the message.